Dystopia warning, obviously. Can I make a little confession to you, which is quite apt considering I'm dressed like a wayward choir boy? Sometimes I just want to say F it all, you know. The world is burning. In our lifetimes, we're going to see climate catastrophe. The tech bros are going to win and they will be fine, as will most of the other billionaires that are pulling the levers and controlling our politicians. Authoritarian rule is going to increase and it's only going to get worse to the point where all of our civil liberties are probably crushed to dust. And no, I don't mean in a kind of conspiratorial, you know, Bill Gates is trying to bum 5G into you like those morons think is going to happen. You know, they have to invent conspiracies to try and have a semblance of control in a world that they're afraid of, and they're right to be afraid of the world, but they're barking up the wrong tree with most of the things that they invent, because the reality of things are so much worse and reported, and you can find out about it all, but people just don't look. Most of the world is going to end up under authoritarian rule. In fact, currently most of the world is under authoritarian rule. Dissenters will be punished brutally, like they already are in many countries, actually. There's a reason why the Tories brought in those anti-protest laws. There's a reason why climate activists are being sent to prison as pedos walk free. So sometimes I do, just want to say, fuck it, go get laid, go get off your tits, go have a party, go have a good time, enjoy it whilst you can, because it's only going to get horribly worse. Anyway. What I wanted to talk to you about today actually doesn't relate to the horrors that I've just laid out, which I genuinely believe are going to happen. But it's in reference to my perspective and the approach that I'm going to be taking moving forward. A lot of it's been inspired by Asif Kapadia's brilliant new film, which I was lucky enough to see the preview of, 2073. And that actually strongly relates to what is going to be a part of my focus in terms of what I concentrate on and kind of have been touching on in my content over the last couple of months, really. I'll level with you. Post general election, I fell into like a massive slump, and it's not for the reasons that people think. You see, I fell into doing all of this. I never anticipated that I would be making content. It was very purely focused on, you know, anti-Tory sentiments, because they were the looming threat in British politics. But now that's shifted, and it's not shifted from a position of being overly loyal or even, you know, in any way loyal to Labour as a party or loving Labour. But we are in a really big predicament here, and this is something that I've been mulling over the last couple of months, trying to find my feet after my neurodivergent hyperfixation on that aim was kind of achieved via, you know, most of the country broadly rejecting the Conservatives and getting in a new government. We were a part of a tactical vote campaign called Stop the Tories Vote. We reached, I think it was over 1.5 million people clicked on our website. We had a very high accuracy rate. We helped people to tactically get in a progressive, right? That was a really big part of our attention over the last couple of years. Now, people have been criticising me, and I see why they're doing it, for not taking that approach with Labour. And why am I not taking that approach with Labour yet? I will tell you. It's multifaceted. It doesn't come from a perspective of blind loyalty to them, far from it. There's a number of different things at play here, and they're all very concerning, and they all have their own offshoots, and I've been trying to make sense of it. Firstly, there's the really big problem that we have with the press in our country. Now, there's a few things that I'm going to be talking about that Labour are doing wrong, but it's not what the papers and most people are focusing on. It's not the mainstream conversation that's happening. But the press bias is something that I have found personally enraging, because for 14 years there was none of this for the Conservatives. Quite the opposite, actually. There was compliance, there was falling in line, it was almost like they were being handed briefs by the Conservative Party. And that whitewashing of what the Conservatives have done, and I know what they did, we all know what they did, we were there, we saw it, it was disgusting. I don't want that to be dismissed and brushed under the carpet, because whatever faults Labour might have, they're not responsible for what the Tories have done to this country for the last 14 years. Another aspect is the fact that I try not to be reactionary. I try to watch the habits. We've had, 3-4 months of a new Labour government. In that time, they've had to, whilst in recess, deal with race riots, which to their credit they handled well. There's elements that I'm concerned about, especially when it comes to some of the people that might be funding them, that is not as broadly reported. Some of the big contracts that we have in place with very dodgy people at the root of them, not least that prick. And then there's also the element that there's a bigger picture to all of this, not least him and the people that he is linked to and the future threat that is looming over the hill. The bigger picture stuff is something we should all be afraid of. Now, that does not mean that in the interim we can't hold accountable the current government. I mean, accountability for all power is paramount. But at the moment, my biggest concerns, whilst I'm watching Labour, whilst I'm looking at their record, whilst I'm trying to see, areas in which we can really call them out publicly and hold them accountable and represent us better, I'm extremely worried by the autocrats that I mentioned, by the populists and who is helping them. The big tech bros like Musk, the links to Russia, the links to foreign powers, the interference in our politics. The media are above the law. The Russian interference, the other foreign interference is not being investigated properly, and there's no transparency in how it is investigated by our government. We get redacted reports on everything, which is another reason why I think inquiries are fucking pointless. You see, I also really resent the position that I was put in. Okay, I'm sure a lot of voters can relate to this position. It's like, yeah, okay, that party might be pretty uninspiring, but in our voting system, we don't have much choice but to choose that option. Otherwise, we get fascism. So you're always just trying to stop the worst thing from happening. And then there's also the issue that because he's a lower level insurgent, party, can't believe people made the fatal error of even electing him. Right, but he knows that not only has he already got loads of the media on his side, he's going to face even less scrutiny. Despite getting way more airtime than all the smaller parties, he's going to get less scrutiny. So people aren't going to be picking over. It's not going to be a news story because it's all going to be about Labour. They don't look into the amount of money that he's taken and from who, or the really expensive flights to America, or the fact that he's refusing to do surgeries. That doesn't matter because he's small, yet he's always platformed, and his party are always platformed. Green are small, they don't get any airtime, do they? Because he is being groomed for the spotlight by these people and by the people that own the corporations. And then the other problem is that we've got truth losing its weight, losing its power and its credibility. And without that, all hell breaks loose and you get chaos. And that's what they want. That's what the far right populists want. They want chaos. Also what Putin wants. And it's precisely what people like Bannon help to orchestrate and have helped to orchestrate. Brexit. Now you've got Putin interfering in Moldova's EU referendum, using the same tactics that he uses here in terms of using, GRU bot farms to swarm social media, appearing to be native, supporting the right-wing populists that are essentially doing his bidding. Britain is isolated, weak, broke in no small part thanks to him. People are divided. People are massively, overtly, openly racist. Bannon, currently in prison for contempt, gets out soon, immediately does a talk with Farage. These people are not even trying to hide their links with each other. And obviously, we need to keep an eye on the current government. Of course we do. But I'm much more worried about the people that are pulling the levers. Billionaires, the tech bros, people like Elon Musk, who is literally giving money to people to support Trump in a cost of living crisis, in a radicalisation crisis. Plus, it's the enraging hypocrisy of it all. We paid over £50 million to Sunak's wife's dad's business that was still operating in Russia despite sanctions after the Ukraine invasion. Yet it's a news story for 2 weeks when Starmer goes to see Taylor Swift and talk about the Southport stabbings, yeah. And this isn't blind defence, it's just hypocrisy. It's poorly weighted. It's immense bias, and it's enraging because it's giving people a perception of scandal when it's not necessarily there. There's a few things I can go into, but at the moment the worst charge you can probably throw at Labour is that they're not particularly inspiring. They're a bit all over the place, but they're not rotten. We haven't had time to assess what they're going to do yet, but we have had daily reports designed to make the public think that they're exactly like the last lot, and that is deliberate, and that is a worry. You see, the problem that I have, the biggest problem I have with all of this, is that people are not getting the truth, and also the really disturbing rise in people not even believing the truth. Like, we're getting to a point now where people are willingly, knowingly believing nonsense and repeating nonsense because it suits their particular agenda, because of the footballification, because people want to belong to something even if it's nonsense or evil. And that's what happens when you disenfranchise people for many years. That's what happens when you brainwash them with nonsense and lies as campaign slogans. That's what happens when you get your mates in the media to repeat them over and over and over again until they bed in and people say Daily Mail headlines in Vox Pops on the street when talking to news reporters. And they know all of this, and they are playing people. And I don't know how we'll counter that. I don't. But what I do know is that I'm not going to become another version of the Daily Mail. What matters to me are the architects of our decline, the people that are destroying us for profit, the disaster capitalists, the tech bros, the autocrats, the fingers in the pies, and the way that they're trying to use hate as a vehicle of control, the way that they're radicalising people via social media. Because the headline is just one element of it. Then you go on Twitter, you see the rage farm, and you also see the bot farms repeating the message over and over again until it fucking beds in. That to me personally is a bigger deal. Like the Taylor Swift thing, for example, unless Taylor Swift is personally influencing laws, it's irrelevant. Lord Ali isn't influencing policy, but they're influencing how people think. There's a number of things that we should all be demanding of the new Labour government, and I'm going to touch on them, but what I wanted to say today is that my focus moving forward is going to be on what I feel to be the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is that we all need to get a grip on what's real, or they will win and we are doomed. And it sounds conspiratorial to say it, but I'm going to be taking a look at Farage and his links to Russia. I want to look at Russian interference. I want to ask questions. I want to look at the far-right network of autocrats that exist, how they're all connected. I want to use my platforms to talk about that, and that's actually probably when shit's going to get really real, and I've already been subject to some pretty malicious, dark stuff. Not because I think that I'm important. I'm a small fish in a big pond, ultimately. But I do have the ability to reach people, and if I'm going to have the ability to reach people, I want to reach them with the truth. Because the absolute priority that we should all be having, I feel, at this point, is grasping on to the truth, what's real, facts, critical thinking, because that's the antithesis of this. And it's ultimately the only way that we can beat them.